Welcome to the Entrepreneur Stories podcast. Jonathan Herps is your host. He is a strategic advisor, coach, and mentor to entrepreneurial founders, business owners, and CEOs. In this podcast, he chats with entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies.
Hi there, it's Jonathan Herps again. Welcome back to my podcast, Entrepreneur Stories of Scaling Up. This episode is episode number 112, and it's an exciting one for me because I'm interviewing Mercedes Ibbett, who's managing director of EVT Incentive Marketing, and Mercedes is a client of mine, so I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. Welcome, Mercedes.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I've tried this a couple of times, but you got COVID and all sorts of things on the way through. So, Why don't we just start with a bit about EVT incentive marketing, but also your entrepreneurial journey to get to where you are.
Yes. Yeah, sure. So I have a very untraditional journey to where I am today. So as you said, I'm the MD of EVT, and my beginnings in becoming an MD were not intentional. So my mum actually started this business back in 1985, and I was only very little at the time. And she successfully ran the business for 27 years or something like that. And I had, after high school, I went to study at college, and I did marketing and events, and my mum, when I finished, was like, we've got this big conference on, come and support us for 3 months. It's a great learning opportunity, and then you can go and get your own job and move on, which I did, and I ended up staying for 3.5 years. At that point, I said, Mum, I've got to go and spread my wings and do my own thing and know that I can do it without, being part of your business. And I did that, but then my mum got very sick. So my mum and dad asked me to come back into the business just to help. Funnily enough, we had the same big conference coming up, but just to help run things. I'd worked across every part of the business, almost every part of the business, while I worked for her. So I was able to come back in and support the business while she was getting treatment. And then mum passed away in 2009. So in the midst of grief, my dad and I decided to keep the business going, and for me to become managing director. I was 25 years old, to be honest. In hindsight, I had very little idea of what I was doing. And that now is, it'll be 15 years next May. So it's an incredible, it's a story of a non-intentional entrepreneur. I stepped in at a time that I felt that I needed to, and now I've been the MD for almost 15 years.
It's amazing when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So tell us a bit about EVT Incentive Marketing. What do you do?
So we are a full service incentive marketing company. So we help our clients run strategic sales incentive programs, employee reward and recognition programs to help improve their business. So they're very quite strategic driven programs. And we do everything from how do you structure a program, how should you reward people, how do we report it, what does it look like, how do we communicate with them, all the way through to what's the best reward. So we have an online platform called Extend, where we have points where people can spend on products and experiences. And we also do big incentive trips where we take top achievers all around the world and reward them for their achievements. So we are creating literally everything. So we have an in-house travel agent, full event team, and we also then do events and conferences as well for our clients.
Very busy, as I know.
Very busy.
Let's take you back a bit. You really got thrown into this.
Yes.
If you were revisiting it now with the knowledge you have now, and remember we're talking about teaching other entrepreneurs. So,
yes.
What aspects of personal leadership development would you prioritize more in hindsight?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I'm such a big believer. It's great to learn on the job, but there are things that I wish I've learned how to be a good manager from years of experience now and making a lot of mistakes. And the thing that I wish that I knew and did earlier was I wish I'd gotten some mentors around me. I had my dad, we work in the business together still today. But I think having external points of views and input from people that were far more experienced than me at the time would have been so valuable, because I kind of just cobbled my way through it. And now I have that, but if I feel like if I had done that earlier, it would have been really advantageous.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Now, I know a bit about your personal life. So tell me, how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business and a very...
Yeah, right. Well, so not only am I MD, I'm a mum. I've got 2 young girls, 8 and 5. So life for me is very full. What I've realized now, 8 years into being a mum and running a business at the same time, is that I do nothing well on either side at the same time.
I think I might argue against that, but yeah.
No, but I really think that balance is an impossible thing to achieve. And I think we've put so much pressure on parents, and not just mums, but parents in general, to, kill it at work. Like there's that thing that goes around, like you've got to work like you don't have kids and be a parent like you don't work. It's impossible. And I've really started to realize that there are some weeks that I'm going to be able to focus more on work because that's where I'm needed, and things at home might slip, and vice versa. And it's all about, my husband's fantastic. We are, 50-50 down the middle. We both decide to have children, so we both do what we've got to do there. But there's a lot of balls in the air all the time. So I find I have to be very organized. I do a lot of exercise to keep myself mentally strong, because it's, it can be quite consuming and anxiety inducing. Be social, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like more women or parents need to talk about the fact that while we might look like we're doing it all, we're actually not. We're doing the best that we can every day. We just get up and give it a go.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, Mercedes and I know, we regularly have our coaching calls, and one of us will have our children in the room.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, I think it's one of the great things of COVID. God help me saying good things about COVID, but yeah, the ability to work from home. I'm like you. I don't believe there's such thing as work-life balance for an entrepreneur. It just doesn't happen. But you can plan, as you say, different weeks.
Yeah.
One of the things I was most proud about, Sadie's, was she and her husband packed up and took the girls to Greece in May, June, I think it was, for 3 weeks, and the business didn't crumble.
Yes.
And it's to me, it's one of those key things of being an entrepreneur, is to build a self-managing team around you that can run it when you're not there.
It's a really good point. And that's the longest I've had off ever since running the business, where I actually haven't worked at all. The team were amazing, ran everything, and it meant that we could have the time with the girls uninterrupted, and it was amazing for us as a family, but also for both my husband and myself individually, just to have that real switch off break. I mean, gosh, it took a couple of weeks to get the brain back in motion when we got home. I'm like, what? We can't drink, cocktails and be on the beach all the time. But it was a really big treat for me to be able to step away for that long, and the business did perfectly well while I was gone.
And I think it was a really big thing for your team as well. I think they appreciated your trust.
Yes. Yeah, they did great. And I always say maybe they didn't do everything the way I would do it, but it was done and the clients were happy. So got to let go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the team. So what qualities do you look for in your employees, and how do you foster a positive culture?
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that is definitely one of the things I've learned on the job by hiring a lot of people. And I'd like to say most of the people I've hired have been great, but of course there's been some duds in there over the years. And what I've always found that it comes down to is value alignment. So I don't always hire for people that maybe have exactly the right experience. They've got some experience that is obviously relevant to the position, and it depends on seniority. But I find I can mold and teach. The team can teach. but they've got to have the right attitude. They've got to come in, be hardworking. The values need to align with my values in the business's culture, and be just a really nice person, a team player. If you get the values right, I've always found that the people work out really well. I've been wowed by experience in the past, but if the values aren't there, it's a terrible experience for both of us.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. You know, we can train people in the actual skills, but if we don't have the values, they don't fit the culture. It'll always
It just doesn't work. And we always say, because we're not a big business, we're a small business with 11 of us. Like, you very quickly can see the people that the values don't align. And I'm very conscious of always trying to give everyone a good go. Like, you know, it can take time. Everyone's got different things happening in their lives. But there's normally that little moment that you're like, oh, I'm not sure. And it tends to be accurate. But I also think what we do culturally, and it did come out of COVID, was we're pretty honest with each other. You know, no one enjoys the hard conversations, but we are with each other who we are in our real lives outside of the office. And I think that really helps. We love a laugh. The culture is we work really hard, but we enjoy working together. The team needs to support each other. Working in events and travel, obviously there's massive peak periods, pre-event or pre-trip, that everyone's hands on deck and everyone is really happy to roll up their sleeves and help. And that's a value, and that is very much our culture.
And your team, a lot of them have been with you a long time now.
Well, my longest has been with us for over 20 years, just over 20 years. And he was amazingly employed by my mum. And the rest, 10, 7, quite long tenure. Got some newbies, but long tenure.
But even the newbies have been there a while, and they're progressing up in the business.
Yeah, they are, absolutely. And I'm a really big believer in empowering the staff to grow. So something I, as a female leader, especially with women coming into the team, it's so interesting to see how a lot of ladies, women in their early 20s approach work. They're often worried about, well, what happens one day if I have a baby? What, that kind of thing. And I'm very conscious of helping these women grow, and don't worry about that. That's down the road. You make that work. If you want to keep working, you make that happen. It's about building your career. And what I'm noticing a lot with the younger staff coming through is a real lack of confidence.
A lack of confidence.
Yeah, a real lack of confidence. There's a level of bravado that exists, but when you start to drill down into kind of scratch the surface with them, a lot of the younger people coming through are not very confident in themselves. They don't feel like they can speak up. They don't want to make a mistake, and it holds them back. So trying to work out ways now to harness that, like get them more confident and bring it out of them, it's been really challenging.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that I haven't spoken about.
No, it isn't. There's so much. There's only so many hours in our sessions, Jonathan.
There's another topic of conversation. I'll write that one down.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, what do you think has been your biggest learning as a business owner?
Yeah, okay. Again, this has probably hit me more in the last couple of years. For me, COVID was a real moment of, because our business was quite affected by COVID because of travel. So we really had to, how can I say it? We had to do a lot of things to keep everybody employed. And as a business owner, I had to learn how to communicate some really tough circumstances and be very clear about our intentions to make sure everyone stayed with an income, while possibly cutting, a lot of other stuff out of the business. So what I learned from that, and it's really shaped who I am as a leader now and a business owner, is to be authentic. And I say it with clients too, like no one knew what was going to happen during that period. And I don't like to talk too much about COVID because I'm sick of it, but it taught us a lot as a business, it taught me a lot, and to just be myself. The other thing that I link to that is that when I first started, when I was 25 and I took the business over, I was very young, right? Blonde, female, young. And we work with a lot of very male-dominated industries. And I used to think for people to take me serious, I had to be button up, very professional all of the time. And over the years of, being in rooms and working with people and getting to know them, what I've learned is that the more I am myself, the more business we win, the better clients that we get, because there's an authenticity behind, like, this is who we are. We would love to help you. And we have a laugh, and I get to know people and I connect with people. And that's been a huge change for me. Like, trying to pretend that you're somebody else doesn't work.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point.
Yeah.
And it's interesting on you. You don't want to talk about COVID anymore. Yeah, the first 100 of these interviews, I had a COVID question in there, a pandemic.
Yes.
And I got sick and tired of it as well. I've taken that out for the next series. So.
Yeah, it's hard not to talk about it though, because it was such a, in Australia, it was 2 to 3 years of total change for us. So there's so much that's come from it.
Here's the thing, I loved it. No, because just circumstance. We had literally just finished a house on the water at Jervis Bay, and 2 days before COVID lockdown, they handed it across to us. So I moved the family down onto the waterfront for the first 4 months.
Oh, amazing.
And my kids are 9 now. So we're talking, they're 5. So to have months and months of time with the family was fabulous.
Yeah.
And as you know, I do the majority of my coaching these days via Zoom, and it's very effective. In fact, you and I actually haven't met yet.
No, we've never met in real life, which will be remedied. But the thing that I find really interesting with that is that obviously there's still this big debate about how many days should staff be in the office, and do people need to come back to the office. For us, because we work in such a creative field and we are so deadline driven, right? Every week there's 20 deadlines for clients, maybe 100. I've never actually counted. I should. I find that if you don't get that interaction with your team, the work is a lot harder. It's a lot harder. It's a lot less enjoyable. It's the camaraderie of all being on the same page, going, oh my God, there's so much to do. How are we going to get it done? But also sharing problems, the learning that happens in an office environment, especially for new staff coming through. If they just go home straight away, they don't understand how we talk to each other. They don't understand how we talk to our clients. They don't understand the culture. I find so much harder to express digitally. That we do 3 days in the office and 2 days at home. And I think that's a good balance of the best of both worlds. But it's really interesting to see over the next couple of years what actually happens with that.
Oh, look, I totally agree. And I can see more and more employers wanting the staff back in the office. And and the employers are getting pressured by government as well, because you've got CBDs that are dead.
Yes.
All of that. It's it will be very interesting. My clients, it's 3 at home, 2 at work, or like you, 3. 3-2 is about the number.
Yeah, it seems like a good balance.
Yeah, and it's all about the collaboration, and it's all about the culture, and it's all about how do these young things grow and mature, and frankly get promoted and all of that if they're not in and this is part of the culture you build as well. So
correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So I know the answer to this one. What do you see as the main challenges for you now and going forward into the future?
You tell me, Jonathan, what are the main challenges?
People. Always.
People.
And sorry, for Mercedes' team, that's not directed at you. That is just a general statement.
General statement, absolutely. It's all about growth for us. We are in a really heavy service industry that requires, the stuff we do is complicated. It needs a lot of time. And as much as we can integrate systems and have processes and utilize things like AI, there is a level of touch that comes from people and experienced people. So growing in the right way is probably the challenge, the biggest challenge I'm facing at the moment, because we want to grow, but you can't grow for the sake of growth. It's got to be in the right direction based on the right, revenue and profitability with the right people, and how to structure that and what that looks like. are probably the biggest challenge facing us.
Yeah, and as you grow, as you know, roles change, roles, they adapt, and those sort of changes can be really hard.
Yeah, and people, when you run a small business like I do, I like the people that I work with. And I hire people that I like, because I can't have people around in the team that, again, it's values, right? So all I want is for everyone to have the best possible careers, experiences, and growth. And sometimes that can be tough if things aren't quite going the way that you want, but also with growth, as you said, comes so much change, and taking them on the journey of what that's going to look like. And it's something that obviously we've been working together on, which has been amazing, is just getting more structure around that, so that the team know what's in my head and why we're going the way we're going. And that's something that I, again, probably, if I went back to your earlier question around something from a leadership perspective that I wish I had done earlier, while I intellectually knew it needed to be done, actually putting pen to paper and doing it, and then sharing it with the team, because that's a little bit of a like bearing your soul moment. Like, this is where I want us to be in 3 years, and we really want to get there, but what if we don't? And you want to motivate them, and my whole world is about motivating people and take them on the journey. But I'd never formally done it. So that's been such a big change in trying to manage the way that we're growing, and keeping everybody excited and on the same page with that.
But you found that to be a really liberating, may not be the right term, but
yeah,
your team really jumped on that
yeah.
in a positive way. All of a sudden we're throwing in 3-month plans and OKRs and all this stuff, and you were really quite worried about it, but the team really have taken that on board well, I think.
Oh, they reacted so well, and we're about to have next week, we'll have our first review of how we actually went, because it's almost the end of the quarter on our first run. And we want to celebrate all the great work that's been happening, and what it's given us is such a blueprint for every conversation that we have internally.
Yeah.
So one of the things, Jonathan, that you've made me do is have a lot more meetings, but they're very good meetings, because they're one-on-ones with the team that link to the OKRs and the KPIs, and that we can talk to them. And some weeks it's like business as usual, we're kicking along really well, and other weeks it's like, oh no, we're falling behind here. How do we focus on it? And it's been so good to see the team jump on that. So it's a challenge, but it's obviously a massive opportunity as well.
And I've loved watching from afar, and I won't name any names, but as some of the junior members of the team have stepped up into potentially hard conversations with clients and potential clients, and they've just shone. It's been fabulous.
Yeah. It's been really good. And I probably one of the biggest other challenges that I have is not working in the business, which is, again, why we are working together, and any business owner will really understand this. It is so hard to step away as a boss, as the leader, as the owner, whatever, and go, I'm not going to worry about the client stuff right now. I'm actually going to work on the business, and have time to think about where do we want to go in 3 years, and what does that look like on a quarterly sprint basis, and implement that into the team. Like, it's sometimes like trying to find minutes in the day to do that. And as you grow, I think that is a real challenge, because growth means more work, and you want to grow it, as I said, in a way that also you have the money to pay for staff. So I think that's it's that kind of point that you're on the precipice, but you're not quite there. So how do you not work in the business while needing to work in the business? That is a huge challenge with growth.
And look at, I mean, you've said a couple of times in this interview, you've got a small business, and I just want to pick you up a little bit there. 9, 10, 11 staff, plus contractors as well. That is probably the most complex size of business you could run. Because you don't have necessarily a fully formed management leadership team. You've got to find the money to hire them. You've got to change people's roles so that as the business grows. For anybody listening, Mercedes' business is I can tell you definitively, 0.0 0.4% of businesses in Australia. That's where Mercedes business is at. You know,
Yeah, it's crazy.
very, very few businesses grow to the number of staff, but and also the number of the amount of revenue and profit that you've got your business to. And that was before I came along. So you know, I think that's why I just chimed in straight away with people, because that's where the complexity comes. And as you quite rightly say, we're dealing with people's lives and people we care about.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a really good point. And I think as a business leader, celebrating any kind of success and actually having that kind of greater context to the world is really hard, because you're always in it and you're thinking, you know, oh, this has happened, that's happened, I've got this client, I need to manage that, or the team needs this, or whatever it might be. There's always some little fire or something that needs your attention. It is quite rare to ever sit back and go, yeah, right, we're actually doing quite well in the grand scheme.
No, you are. I mean, though I'm going to tell a fun story about you. Yeah, the last time Sadie took the team away and to celebrate a big lunch, she woke up the next morning with COVID, and she thought she'd infected the whole team.
And we were had 2 events that week that we were running, of which one I needed to actually physically be at. And I thought I'd taken my whole team out with COVID, which luckily no one got it, which is somewhat of a miracle.
But you know, once again, there was a great experience where you got taken out and your team stepped up in a fabulous way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is good, I think. And that's one of the things about having an external business coach or mentor that you can talk to about these things, because you actually put things into context. I just go, oh gosh, I'm meant to be there, what are we going to do, and go into solution mode. Whereas it's like, oh wow, the team stepped up and it was fine without me, and the clients were fine and everything worked out and I got better and life goes on. But you're just always running from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. That celebrating success is something that I think all business owners really struggle with.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing is, yes, one of the key things I do with you is try and make you step back and, as you say, work on the business.
Yes.
Do that thinking on future thinking.
Yeah.
So tell me, when you think of the word successful, who comes to mind, and tell me why?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, because I mean, obviously you've got all your really big, well-known business people like the Richard Bransons of the world and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really interested in people that are successful in a more, I guess, authentic, smaller way, that, you know, they've built something and it's actually been successful. I think part of the issue, and I'll go on a little rant here, but I think we live in a culture at the moment, especially with social media, that success, you can look very successful and not be. And then people like me will look at that and go, well, I'm not driving a, you know, crazy sports car, walking around with my crazy designer handbags, living in a mansion in blah, blah, blah. But when you start to always scratch the surface on those people, there's a huge amount of debt, there's a huge amount of, you know, unhappy employees, all that kind of stuff. So something I've been trying to think about over the last couple of years, because I've been running the business for so long now, is what does success actually mean to me? And so we've talked a lot about, like, getting very clear on what it is, and actually not comparing yourself to other successful leaders and saying, I'm just really happy with what I've been able to do and what I've been able to create. And success for me is having a business that I can go to Europe for 3 weeks a year and not work, and just spend time with my family, or I can step away because I'm sick and things won't fall down. So it's not probably a straightforward answer, because I'm still trying to work out what success really is for me and not compare myself to other people.
Really good answer. And it wasn't the answer I was expecting.
Who did you think I was going to, what did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to mention your father.
Oh, interesting. Oh, very interesting. And that there's absolutely merit in that. And my mum, who originally created the business in the 80s when women didn't run businesses, you know, she was a young mum who decided, I'm going to start my own company with my dad, and they did it. Like, that to me is an amazing story.
Absolutely. But that's not the reason I would have said your father.
Okay.
I would have said your father, and a bit personal, is, he's been such an extraordinary support to you, without getting in your way. and letting you do it, and because he owns half the thing, and and I've met him virtually, guys. So a really impressive guy.
Yeah, he is, and he's a classic good leader. He just lets people who are better at things than him do it and get in their way. Yeah, and that is, you're right. That's a great leader. Yeah.
Sorry, Gordon, I'm not trying to put Mercedes in the spot, but yeah, that was my impression.
That's fine.
Okay, books, podcasts, biographies of leaders.
Yeah, I do read. I'm a really avid reader. It's actually one of my coping mechanisms for stress. I really enjoy getting soaked into fiction in particular, because I find it helps me kind of unwind at the end of my day, get a good night's sleep, and be ready to go the next day. So I do find business books a little meh. They're a little boring to read. They're a little repetitive, right? Like they say the same thing.
And I keep giving them to you.
And I read like the first quarter. I really try. But the tip you gave me was just to literally go into ChatGPT and say, give me the top 10 bullet points. And that works really well too. But I had a really good thing about this. And there are probably 3 books that I've read over, since my early 20s that have actually really helped me. The first one is very old. It's one of Dale Carnegie's books, The Art of Public Speaking. Okay. And I read that when I was in my early 20s. I hated public speaking, hated it. And I found that book really practical and helpful in getting a lot more confident in speaking. And one of the key things he talks about is that when you're speaking, no one actually knows what you're going to say. So you have to not go, oh my God, I stuffed up, and move like, ooh, just like keep going. Get yourself back there and move on, because no one knows what's on your notes. No one knows what you meant to say. You can always bring yourself back. And I always found that very helpful. A much more recent book would be The Lean Startup by, is it Eric Ries? Yep. And the thing I took from that, because we do a fair bit of tech, is just with any kind of product, the best way to get it to market is to get it to market. It doesn't have to be perfect. When I first started working in any development, my thinking was always, it's got to be 100% before you get it out there, but it's much better to be imperfect, get it live, and then learn from it and go from there. And I think that can be applied not just in development, but in business. It can't all be perfect all the time. You got to learn, you got to evolve.
Directionally correct. Yeah.
Exactly. So I always found that really interesting. And then probably a very obvious one would be Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. I loved that book.
Yeah.
And I know she kind of edited it after the point, but it kind of links to what I was saying earlier, that as women, it just really gave me a light bulb moment that as women, so many women going into the workforce will say, well, I'm going to have a baby in 5 or 10 years, and they're not going to take the promotion. They're not going to push their career in. And that really, I never thought that way, because I had a mum in business. So my exposure to women in business was just, you just make it work. You do it, you do your best. Whereas a lot of women haven't had that. So they are making big life decisions based on something that's never happened, that is so far down the road, that might never happen or might happen in 10, 15 years. So that's why I'm very focused on my team and coaching them to say, well, that's great, but that can come. It will all come and it will work out. I do follow a lot of people on like LinkedIn and Instagram for quick bite-sized inspirations. So like Simon Sinek and Adam Grant, I think their leadership insights are really good. But I like to look outside of the really obvious ones and just get inspired by everything everywhere. I mean, we run events, we do a lot of creative work, design. Like my inspiration comes from something I see on the street, a kids event that I went to. It could be anything. I like to kind of just bring it all into my brain and see where I can use it.
Excellent. Yeah, I had a train of thought. I just lost a train of thought. But what it was, one of the things in the 112 of these, we found it hard to find women entrepreneurs. And about episode in the about 50s to 60s, I found 4 or 5, bombshell female entrepreneurs like you. And it's fascinating to, it's worth you going, if you haven't listened to them, go and find them, and their journeys. And as you say, it's quite different to the average male, and which I was surprised by, being the average male. And but I think they're some of the best of all the podcasts. I think they're some of the best podcasts I've recorded, and some of the insights that they and you have brought out have been phenomenal.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? But why do you? It's such a complex issue, isn't it? Because it is so different for women to be successful than men, and it blows my mind. I think, having my background where I had such a successful mother, I've just never thought it was unusual.
Yeah.
But I look around me, my team, my friends, colleagues, and I look and I see how hard they kind of grapple with what it is to be a woman in business or successful, and like, whether you have children or you choose not to have children. It is such a complicated issue. And that's why I like that book. She does kind of shed light on why. Like, it's the way we're brought up. It's the way we're brought to think what our role is in life. And I think, but a lot of it also has to do with who you choose to spend your life with, if you choose to have a partner.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do what I do if I had a partner that didn't just go, yeah, go do it, you. That's huge. It's huge.
And we won't say what he does, but he's in a very, very senior role as well.
Oh yeah, he's got a huge job. And trust me, it's complicated. This is where I talk about balance doesn't exist, because we're constantly negotiating who's picking the kids up, who's going to be home for the nanny, because we have a lot of help, right? But you've got to, if you want to have a career, you've got to pick a partner in life, or do it on your own, who's going to support you, because you can't be coming up against that as well at home and then in the real world too.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a that encapsulates a lot of the questions. If you think about the balance, the one thing that stands out to me thinking about the women I interviewed, and the successful ones, they actually, and it's your point about what would you change, they reached out much earlier to mentors.
Yeah.
And they credit that as being one of the critical things for their success. I'm ad-libbing 60 interviews further on.
Yeah. But that's really interesting. And that's where I do try to position myself with my team, that I want to be your mentor. I want to show you what you can be and what you can do, if that's what you want. Like, everyone's on their own journey, right?
That's right.
But sometimes my team are like, how do you actually do this? I'm like, I'm doing it terribly. I shouted at my kids this morning. I forgot to do this. I've got, all these commitments that I'm struggling to make, but I'm just giving it a go. And one of the things I was going to say with like being a leader, one of the lessons I've learned is so much of it's just about showing up.
Oh yeah. And perseverance.
It's, no one's waking up in the morning being like, oh my God, I'm going to nail it, like every day. Like, that is not real life. It's just get up, show up, have a plan, and go through the motions. But you have really great weeks, and some weeks you're like, I'm just going to be able to get from A to B this week, and that's got to be good enough. But I showed up.
So listen, last question for you. Any last piece of advice or parting words for entrepreneurs, growing businesses out there?
Yes. I have 3 bits of advice. One, and it kind of follows on from what I just said, is that I have realized that no one is doing anything perfectly, and no one is, going about their business in a way that they know that everything they do is going to work out. We're all out there just hustling and trying, and sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. I think there's a perception that everyone knows exactly where they're going, how they're going to get there, but there's a lot of things that have to come into play, and it's okay to just give it a go and learn, and not think that you know the answer, because most people don't, to be honest. The other piece is, and I'm stealing this from you. What do you call it? Replicate and whatever. It's not how, it's who.
Who before how? Yeah.
Yeah, your people are your biggest asset, and you need the right people around you to grow. And that's something that I've learnt and you've cemented it's all about the people.
Yeah, I mean, that's where success comes from.
Yeah.
I've so enjoyed this conversation.
Oh,
I
good.
always do, but it was like it's fun for you to be speaking rather than me ranting at you.
You don't
Well,
rant.
not ranting, but no, I've really enjoyed it, Mercedes. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's been fun.
And I'm looking forward to posting the book to you this afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking
I
forward
told Mercedes.
looking forward to skimming it.
Thank you so much. We are speaking before Christmas, I'm sure, so you and I'll continue
Yes.
the conversation. But I really, really appreciate you sharing your insights.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Hey.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you watch/listen. It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the learning gets. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in entrepreneur stories of scaling up. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to admin@scaleupgrowth.co. Put "be a guest" in the subject line and tell me a little about yourself. If you want to gauge where your business growth potential is and identify where the biggest opportunities in your business lie, or where the key needs that you need to concentrate on right now are, take our assessment where you will receive personalized advice for improvement. It's quick and free. Go to scaleupgrowth.scoreapp.com. If you would like to work with me one-to-one, I love coaching and get the best outcomes that way. Send me an email at jonathan@scaleupgrowth.co and put one-to-one in the heading. Tell me a bit about your business and let's see how we can apply a great strategy for your business. So that's it for this week. Tune in next time for more great learnings from a scaling entrepreneur.